So what she calls betrayal blindness is the simultaneous knowing and not knowing. How many of your clients have said, cheating, not cheating, I don't know. They just won't get there, but like, yeah, I did see like a woman's underwear in my bedroom, but like, I don't know, maybe that was my friend's dog's underwear. I'm like, okay. And that's all we can say is, okay. And you go to your own therapy and say, I want her to know the underwear is not the dog's. You're like, but we can't go too fast. This is where Fry's work is really interesting. It's the unawareness, the not knowing, and the forgetting that people display towards betrayal. It can occur in any kind of betrayal or trauma, but it's most pronounced in interpersonal betrayals. Why do we do this? To preserve not only our relationships, but our view of the world. Relationships are good. Family is good. Church is good. The government is good. Because if you really saw what it was, then what? It's like these pillars. It'd be like me knocking all of these down. You'd be trying to get out of this room real fast. And that panic is not what we want for them. She beautifully highlights this in her book when she gives a vignette of a woman who is going through, she's a married woman, and the woman, her and her husband have a young child. And the husband traveled a lot for work, like 3 or 4 days a week. And instead of coming home to his wife and young child, he'd always go to a bar first and have drinks with his friends. Although she desperately wanted her husband to want to come home to her and her child. He was an invalidating, gaslighting, serial cheater kind of guy. So one night her friend said, hey, let's get dressed up and have a date night. I set up a sitter for you. We'll go, we'll meet them at the bar. We'll end up having a great time together. You already know where this is going. This is a very bad trailer because you're like, I already know where it's going. So the babysitter, she gets dressed up, lovely. He walks into the bar, passionate kiss session as soon as he walks in the bar with a woman who was sitting closer to the door. She approaches her husband and says, hey, what happened? And he said, nothing happened. You didn't see anything. That was nothing. She thought she knew me, but we don't know each other. She's crazy. And the woman in the vignette said it was as though it went whoosh. I didn't need to see that. And she's like, it was almost an audible sound, a whoosh. And she said, I realized I just whooshed for the next 13 years of that marriage. How many of your clients whoosh? How many of us? Oh, honey, that's over drinks later, okay? Because that's as the queen of the whoosh world. But it's the whoosh. And I thought that was such a beautiful way for it to be put. They do not see it, but more importantly, they cannot see it. He had rendered her entirely financially dependent. She had an infant son. She had no accounts of her own. And she had left her employment. So when she thought of leaving, it felt like an impossible place to go. So these betrayals don't get processed. They don't get integrated as betrayal. They're there. It's not like they haven't taken up residence in the hippocampus somewhere. But they're not available, though repeated instances as other betrayals came up. And how many of you have had clients say that? You're like, I put this out of my mind, and then this new cheating thing came up, and then I remember the thing 6 years ago, and 2 years ago, and 9 years ago, and when we first got engaged, they're like, where was all this stuff all this time? Whooshed. So they could stay attached in these narcissistic relationships. But here's the piece, and this is where Fry's work theoretically is so important to narcissistic abuse. Can our clients afford to see the betrayal? And that if it's mom, if it's parent, if it's grandparent, if it's spouse, can they afford to see it? And that relates to their level of empowerment. How much power do they have? Money? And even if they have money, listen, folks, I live in LA, right? Where, I mean, this might be the only city that's competitively narcissistic with LA. Hollywood, politics, right? But these are people with, so it's not just money. I've worked with people who have access to millions and millions of dollars. They didn't feel empowered because they had histories of trauma. They didn't feel empowered because they're like, I'll be damned if I blow up another marriage. They didn't feel empowered because they're like, my parents were divorced and I wasn't doing this to my kids. They didn't feel empowered because they thought, I will lose my position in my culture. So power is not just the ability to take a credit card and buy a flight or rent an apartment. It is a subjective state. We, as therapists, have to figure out that level of empowerment they feel. We can't just walk up and say, yo, he's a narcissist. We can't do that. It's too destabilizing for our clients, right? Are they allowed to react or experience this betrayal? And then, if they do react to it, what needs of theirs are not going to get met? And a lot of them are basic needs, but some of them are just attachment needs. And I shouldn't say are, just are attachment needs, which may be more important than the financial needs. Over time, being exposed to this is not adaptive, and we'll talk about that shortly.